be able to say that I've been a NAMLE member since 2021. And my first brush with misinformation was a picture of a five-headed snake, as you can see on the slide. It was something my grandfather sent me. And back then, when I was 10, I was like insanely surprised how real something fake could be. Since then, this motivated me to pursue the battle against misinformation, and I wanted to promote media literacy. So since then, I've become an ambassador of NAMLE, a youth ambassador of NAMLE, and founded my own initiative called Muscle Up Against Misinformation to increase media literacy awareness. So now I've also had the wonderful opportunity to talk to many seniors and students on how they can use media literacy techniques to combat misinformation on their own. Also, as a youth council member and a member of the Youth Advisory Board of Media Power Youth, I've also learned how important it is to center youth voices and bring student-led solutions so not only us, but everybody can have a more safe and positive media experience.
Thank you, Pranav. That was awesome. Next, we have Jenna.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna, and my media literacy journey began in my childhood bedroom, stuck inside at the peak of the pandemic. I was isolated. I was too young to vote. I was too young to drive. I felt completely helpless as the political landscape around me just eroded with disinformation, radicalization, and censorship. So I did what we all did. I escaped to social media and I fell into a constant cycle of doom scrolling, just checking the death toll every morning. So I found that my own disillusionment was reflected in others, all of these people spiraling, growing anxiety-fueled internet addiction. I was researching colleges at the time, and I found my major, media studies, and began specializing in the psychological study of media consumption. And I found that the more I understood the impact of media messaging on mental health, journalism, and democracy, the more my confusion and exhaustion lifted. So I joined the News Literacy Initiative at Penn State as a news literacy ambassador and began teaching guest lectures around campus, as well as webinars for educational organizations. And in addition to this council, I'm a social media intern with NAMLE. I'm an education advocacy intern with the Media Education Lab. And this fall, I will be studying abroad in the Czech Republic to teach my first semester-long media literacy class. So all of this is to say that I'm here because it's difficult when bombarded by catastrophic news from such an early age to have hope for the future, but media literacy has restored mine. I'm determined to improve the state of our democracy by teaching others how to adapt to this post-pandemic, semi-offline world.
That's great. That's so powerful, Jenna. Next we have Lily. Lily?
Oh, Hi, everyone. My name is Lily, and my media literacy journey began in my 8th grade science class, 2 years from where I am today. As we were going over the climate change unit, our teacher brought attention to misinformation regarding our Earth. We were assigned to write an essay on the misinformation and the factual evidence. As every other student, I did exactly that and gave no thought to it. But a year later, climate misinformation was brought up once again. But this time it was from a friend who had started an initiative called Digital Truth. Through Digital Truth, I was given the chance to learn more about fact-checking, mis and disinformation, and how to combat it as well. Through my work with Digital Truth, I was able to attend a NAMLE conference and realize media literacy branched out much farther than just misinformation. Over the course of this year, I understood that my media literacy journey had begun way before I stepped foot in that classroom. It began the same way as everyone else, a child surrounded by books, music, and electronics. Although my journey may have started then, it is still the beginning to me, and I can't wait to see how far it goes.
That's so amazing. I can't wait to see how far it goes too. And Jillian.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm a recent graduate from Marietta College, so that's been pretty fun. My media literacy journey started, I'd say ever since I was little. I've always loved reading, and I was being made aware of things such as banning books, banning shows, banning forms of technology, and that's always interested me at a very young age. And I always thought it was very alarming because of how many of the banned books and resources that we do have often contain vital information that a lot of people need to grow up, as well as health media literacy. Nationwide Children's Hospital is a place I used to go to all the time when I was younger for therapy and everything. And my mom works there, and she also played a major role in shaping how media literacy has affected me, teaching me that access to information in language that is easy for people to understand is incredibly important, especially in industries like the health industry. So, what I had done as part of my media literacy journey is during my senior year, working as an intern at Fifth Street Consulting, a student run organization. I put together a whole week of media literacy events with guest speakers, tables, activities, everything. And that's how the council reached out to me. Um, as I have learned over the years, media literacy can be sometimes a little bit difficult to get people on board with, but through the power of education, it's something that a lot of us are here to learn and help spread the word about. And I hope to see where things go.
And we are so excited to have you on the council. Jillian will be talking more about banned media later on. And next we have, let's see who's next. Pride.
Hi, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm Pride David, an incoming freshman at Howard University. I began media literacy work in my sophomore year of high school after a challenging conversation with my science teacher about climate change that sparked a newfound curiosity for evaluating and critiquing the news I found online. I began working at MediaWise, a digital literacy project on their teen fact-checking network, creating YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram content debunking viral misinformation and teaching others how they could do it too. I have since worked with the Poynter Institute, PBS Learning Media, PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs, Just Buffalo Writing Center, Nickelodeon, Family Online Safety Institute, and NAMLE to help educate and share media literacy awareness and tips with international audiences. I am also the first recipient of the NAMLE Youth Award, which I won last year. My mission is to increase access to media literacy and create better understanding among people.
That is so amazing. And there are more awards to come. Stay tuned for that. Next is Flora.
Hello, my name is Flora, and I'm a rising senior from Los Angeles. I first became interested in media literacy through an initiative that I had started with peers called Digital Truths, as was mentioned before. Partnering with PEN America, we developed a two-part institute on combating misinformation in Model United Nations in the South Bay. I am very involved in with Model UN at my school, and Digital Truths wanted to ensure that students were using credible sources and fact-checking what they believed to be incorrect. We also gave several presentations to middle school Model UN students to help promote the ideas of using credible sources from an earlier age. Digital Truths attended a NAMLE conference earlier this year, and we were introduced to several industry leaders across varying fields. We received a variety of new perspectives on the topics of AI and media literacy that we will take into consideration for future projects in the following year.
Thank you all so much for those lovely introductions. I'll stop sharing my screen now. I just feel like these collages are such a fun way and to talk about yourself. They're so unique. Thanks to Ms. Shautula Lipkin, our director, for giving us that idea. I'm so obsessed. We are also missing one of our other youth council members, Emily Ang, who couldn't be present today, but she is absolutely brilliant, and we are so happy to have her on the council as well. So moving into our conversation, our first question is for Pranav. So like I said, we are so excited to have formed this council, and we really want you all as the council to dictate where we are heading with it. So what are the goals of the council as you see them?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say like our digital world is quickly evolving, and even like I find it hard to keep up, especially with how like AI is making more and more advancements almost on a daily basis. it's so hard to see how it's so amazing to see actually how AI is transforming our world. And because of that, it might be a little overwhelming. It might be hard for some to use the technology effectively, and it might be easy for some people to fall for misconceptions surrounding the technology. So, because of this, I feel that the main long-term goal of this NAMLE Youth Council should be to make media literacy current and relevant by demystifying and embracing AI literacy, both inside and outside the classroom. So by doing this, we can allow students to have a more positive and safe media experience. And looking at the short-term goals of the council, we're currently developing some tools and resources that will help break down big concepts like how I mentioned earlier, how you can use AI effectively, and common misconceptions regarding AI into like bite-sized pieces of information so people can easily digest it and apply it to their daily lives. We feel like this can encourage people to use AI more ethically and responsibly and break down many of the misconceptions surrounding the technology. So I feel like that this youth council will do a great job in supporting, namely by addressing the needs of students, whether it comes to questions about AI or media literacy in general, so they can thrive in the digital world.
My gosh, Pranav is coming for my job. But yes, AI is such a timely topic for everyone. And I feel like your insight as students and young people is really impactful, especially because you're growing up with it. So we will definitely circle back to talk about AI and the project that you're creating some more later. But first, I do want to address another hot topic issue. And this question is for Flora and Jillian. There is a lot of conversation around banning media, from physical media like books to technology and digital media. What is your reaction to this? And I'll hand it over to Flora first.
So, media is an outlet for people to express their opinions and ideas. I believe technology can be used to contribute new perspectives in our digital age. Banning media, such as books, can be used as a way to undermine opinions of certain voices and can impact how the world understands freedom of expression.
Thank you for that. And can I just ask a clarifying question, Flora? When you say certain voices, are you referring to marginalized people or?
Yeah, that's so when this banning media idea has been used historically to undermine the voices of marginalized communities, and it's truly disheartening how we have let our society just ban the media of people when they're just trying to express their opinions or cultural beliefs.
Thank you so much for that, Flora. Jillian, do you want to share some thoughts?
Sure thing. What I feel today is that access to resources and seeing books, technology, digital media being banned is incredibly alarming, especially because a lot of these books and media contain information that may provide new perspectives or life lessons that people would not have known otherwise. A lot of times books are banned in certain regions because of cultural values or worries about promoting agendas, usually political in nature, as seen by a lot of the wording used by those calling for those bannings. An example I had learned about in a banned books class was the Lorax has been banned in areas where logging is a predominant industry for fear of children thinking badly of their parents who work in those industries. But if people do not ask questions about their society, how can we learn and grow as people?
Yeah. I did not know that about the Lorax, so thank you for sharing with us. It's very dystopian, and I really like that last part that you said. It's giving a little bit of 1984, which if you read the book, you do not want that. So yes, we should definitely be questioning our society. Follow-up question on that. How has your work in media literacy contributed to your thinking or understanding around the issues of banning media, especially in the terms of access to information? And I'll throw this over to Lily.
Um, my work in media literacy has brought light to the fact that most of the times, like when people ban media, it's kind of counterproductive because when the goal is to express concerns about the information, by suppressing the information, we do the opposite. And our culture has contributed to the issue of banning media. Since everyone interprets information differently, by restricting the access to them, like the different cultures, everyone interprets information differently. By having access to diverse media, we get to learn about the different perspectives and cultures and see more than just what we believe and what we've seen in our culture.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do you feel like it's like an attempt to protect youth?
I
Yeah,
honestly think it is because since everyone has different ages as well, as you grow and develop, you start to see things differently.
right. It's like they're trying to protect, but it's actually just like hurting you guys. Jillian, do you want to add anything?
Yeah. All right. So to me, access to resources and information is especially crucial today because many people I found out actually rely solely on the internet to get their news sources. So things like Facebook, Twitter, which, as you know, may be rampant for misinformation without guiding clarification. Because that misinformation is rampant online, people may not understand what sources these people are citing, or even if they're citing information at all. For all we know, it could be made up. Additionally, many aspects of our culture have contributed to different demographics not being able to get information that they need, whether it be culturally, systematically, um, especially for those in minority groups. In the health industry, for example, the average person has a health literacy level of a fifth grader. Imagine that for someone who doesn't even speak English as a first language, it's probably even lower than that, considering English is the predominant language in our culture, well, in the US at least. Right. So the concept of plain language can make it so that people can understand the terms related to health challenges and publish works about health and safety. And I think using simplified language can make a lot of the big jargon that we see in buzzwords, especially in terms of political media, probably a little more understandable and could help get people's messages across better instead of just relying solely on buzzwords to generate outrage.
Yeah. I am so glad that you brought up health literacy because it's not just about banning diverse books and media. I feel like when we talk about censorship, we always bring up like, banning books by BIPOC authors or banning queer books, which is one part of the issue. But like you're saying, the censorship tends to harm the most marginalized people in other ways as well. And health is a huge issue, and access to information about health is a huge issue. So thank you both so much for those answers. Our next question will be for Pranav. What challenges in schools do you think the media literacy community often overlooks?
Well, as a high school student going into sophomore year, when things like ChatGPT came out, we were like extremely excited and open to changes like that happening in the digital world. But by looking at the reaction we had to ChatGPT, we were sometimes like a little too excited. We were kind of too open, and in a sense, we were too trusting of the technology we were given to us at that time. Like as students, we were extremely excited when ChatGPT came out that there's so many possibilities with the technology. You can like use it generously and expansively. If you asked like anybody in my grade, how do you use ChatGPT, you'd be met back with like 1,000 different ways to write a prompt so you get the most detailed response. Or you'd be met back with like 1,000 ways to apply ChatGPT to any daily task so you just make your life easier. But if you actually ask any of my friends or anybody in my school how ChatGPT works, you wouldn't really get much of a response because I feel that not many people realize that ChatGPT relies on the data it was trained on, and not many people know that the data ChatGPT was trained on could be factually incorrect, biased, or even weaponized to disinform. So, what I feel that many schools and curriculums are lacking, and what they need to do so the youth like us are more AI ready in the future, is to teach something called data literacy from a very young age. So, let's see what data literacy is. Well, on one hand, data literacy means learning how to read, understand, and interpret data, and being able to critically analyze data to draw real-world conclusions. But on the other hand, data literacy has a much more different meaning. It is about the ability to understand the social aspect of how data is collected and interpreted. If you want to be a very data literate person, you should understand the ethics of how data is used to train certain large language models like ChatGPT. So I feel that introducing data literacy or any essential data skills, honestly, should be introduced at the elementary or middle school level, not the college or high school level, because that's just too late. More and more younger kids are accessing things like ChatGPT at a younger and younger age. So because of this, we need to implement such curriculums at a younger and younger age as well. I feel that data literacy is extremely important. I keep bringing this back to AI at the end, but because AI literacy, data literacy, either one is an extremely important part of media literacy because they both help students and adults weigh risks versus benefits in situations. They help people make more informed decisions, and they teach people to build a more positive and safe media experiences for not only themselves but others.
That was great, Pranav. I'm literally like, yeah, let's go. Like riled up. That is such a fantastic point. And it's definitely something that we need to be thinking about more. On the topic of AI and ChatGPT, our next question is for Pride and Flora. There has been a lot of hand-wringing about AI and the extent that AI can be used in the classroom. What is your perspective on this? And I'll throw it to Pride first.
My perspective on AI being used in the classroom is pretty unique because I went to a performing arts high school. So honestly, it was a game changer with working for school projects. Using AI, me and my classmates were able to edit videos, add photo effects, create art for graphic design projects, give us ideas to help with our time management, and overall just create better projects that sparked our creative energy and furthered our journey. From my perspective as a student, I believe students and educators can use AI software such as ChatGPT, CapCut, and Adobe Express to generate ideas and to help them meet where their weaknesses are, but not to simply copy and paste.
Yeah, that is really great. And I really like that you're talking about how it's helped you and that it's not just copy and paste because it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe knowing how to properly use the tools might help curb a lot of the issues that educators are finding with students, using it to cheat or abuse it. And so what are some of your thoughts on this, Flora?
So, in regards to the use of AI in the classroom, I believe that there are certain ways that teachers can incorporate their tools to improve the quality of their lessons, ignoring the reality of AI and how significant it will be in our future professions, I feel is not successfully preparing students for what comes next. Of course, there are limitations as to how it can be used currently, but I believe that experimenting with AI on lesson planning could be beneficial. For example, at my school, in my English classes, we have started to rely more on timed writings in the class, which has resulted in worse work and very rushed education on how to write. But if we were to take a different approach that encompasses actually developing as a writer, I believe that would be more successful for our future professions and the ability for us to write.
Yeah, you're so right. And I like that you said how it's like around to stay. It's definitely something that education should use more. If education is supposed to prepare students for the future, it's definitely sticking around. Thank you for that. So switching gears here, Jenna's looking a little antsy to talk. So a question for Jenna and for Pride. How has media literacy contributed to your approach to civic engagement?
Yeah, so media literacy for me is so enmeshed with civic engagement. We all grew up or are growing up during the most polarizing political elections of recent history. Like at critical points of our development, we were faced with this fire hose of constant catastrophic news, school shootings, climate change, the pandemic, which political party is destroying the world. So my news fatigue and decision fatigue was through the roof. And so I turned to decisionless social media like TikTok for stress relief, which was at just the perfect time for my brain to develop addictive technology habits that I feel trapped in. I checked my screen time yesterday. I am averaging 91 pickups a day. I pick up my phone an average of 91 times per day. So media literacy served as this logical explanation, a clearing in the haze of a chaotic digital space of political tribalism. Questions like, why do we feel so divided? Algorithms reshape our information processing. News organizations have to turn to horse race journalism. How can I follow politics without falling into a deep depression? Develop healthy news diet practices and practice critical thinking like it's a muscle. So it's comforting to me that there is systematic research on this, that we're not alone. Media literacy is not just a comfort or a tool for empowerment for me. It's what allows me to be civically engaged.
That is so true. Thank you, Jenna. And I think a lot of people would agree with you. It makes me think about how our capacity to receive news has increased, but our capacity to synthesize it hasn't. Which the solution would probably be more media literacy to cope with that. So thank you for that. Pride, would you like to answer?
Yeah, of course. So I would say that media literacy has given me purpose to my civic engagement. I believe that anyone really can do community service, but to truly serve and give back to your community is such a rare and beautiful thing. I work with youth at my local writing center, just Buffalo Writing Center, and I've gotten to help them learn media literacy through their interests. For example, I worked on a project where I taught middle schoolers about climate change and misinformation surrounding it. I was able to teach why media literacy is important and skills to fact check the information they come across online. We were then able to write both fiction and nonfiction pieces inspired by it. I get to help kids learn media literacy in a way that is fun and inspires them to think more about the world around them, which has been an incredible experience.
Hope that everyone heard her. There is hope, everybody. Pride is teaching the kids, so we will be okay. No worries. Okay, so this next question is for Lily. What unique or specific perspectives do you bring to the community as young people?
As a youth council, we bring a fresh perspective on the engagement and understanding of media literacy. Growing up surrounded by the media, I have had to learn how information spreads online and how important it is to be aware when something may not be true. As media content can be interpreted differently based on audiences, young people are able to bring awareness to their opinions on how they've learned the most within their own personal media literacy journey.
Thank you. Yeah, you definitely bring that digital native perspective, which we really appreciate. And before I get into our next question, as a reminder, make sure you're throwing your questions for the council into the chat, or be ready to unmute yourself and ask your questions in about 5 minutes because we are almost at our Q&A time. Okay, so a question for Jenna. How should the NAMLE community collaborate with the Youth Advisory Council, and how can the community be supportive, or what do you hope that they will learn?
Yeah, so speaking as a student, as a young person, in general, we want to be heard and understood. We're part of this guinea pig generation, the first not to know life before the internet. And we have firsthand experience on how unsupported technology use has shaped our mental health, our social circles, our ability to understand the world. I have classmates who have joined extremist circles because they fell down the wrong internet rabbit hole at a young age. And I know others who were groomed. And all this time, the adults in our lives didn't have the media literacy skills to understand what we were doing online, let alone help us navigate it. So we want to help learn from this. We want to bridge this generational divide. The stereotypes about young people that we're apathetic, that we're always looking down at our screens, that we have brain rot, they don't tell the complete story. So if the goal of all of this is to better the state of education, to update it with a modern perspective, students must have a voice in it. And that's what we're here for. So if you would like to support us, I believe all of our contact information is going to be in a chat. Please feel free to reach out. We sincerely hope that we can help you connect with the young people in your lives.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jenna. That was so impactful. And when you talked about people falling down those internet rabbit holes, it really does happen all the time when young people don't really have the media literacy skills that they really, really need. And it happens to people my age, people older, but thank you so much for talking about that. It's a really huge issue. And yes, if anyone wants to throw their, yeah, Carson is throwing in the handles and socials in the chat. Okay, this last question is also for Jenna, right before we get into the Q&A. What resource is the council creating, and what stage of the project are you all in?
Okay, so I'm very excited to introduce this to all of you. The first topic that we wanted to tackle, as Pranav mentioned earlier, is AI and AI in education. So we have been working for months and are in the final stages of creating our AI in education best practices. It's a short guide for educators on how to bring AI into the classroom in healthy ways. So we can give students opportunities to build AI literacy, which at this point is just a necessary 21st century skill to have, and practice using it as a support for creativity rather than an obstacle to it. So in this guide, we give 5 teacher-friendly classroom activities, with each one tying into the 5 core principles of media literacy education: access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act. And each example is a real story from our own education. We're bringing grounded classroom experience to this resource, just from the other side of things. So if this interests you, if you would like to check it out, it will be announced very soon in a NAMLE newsletter, so keep checking your inboxes.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Yeah, we are so excited about the resource. We've been working so hard on it. And I really think it's going to be a great addition to the conversation. And with that, we can move into our Q&A session. Let's see what questions we have. All right, so anyone can answer any of these questions. You can just hop right in. The first question is, what cognitive skills should children have before they are AI ready? Excuse me.
I can jump in on this. To be very clear, I am not an expert researcher. The only thing I'm an expert on is my own perspective. But from my own perspective, I think before using AI, you really need to have the kind of data literacy that Pranav was talking about how it works. I have a lot of friends that are so frustrated that AI won't do their math homework because it doesn't understand math, and it just shows numbers that look like they make sense, but they don't. And it's because they don't understand how the information and data is gathered and how AI is just copying patterns that it sees online. So in order to use AI responsibly, you have to understand how it was built in the first place.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with Jenna. Basically, for any children like starting to use AI, you should understand how AI works, because even like as you use AI right now, anything you plug into ChatGPT, it remembers it and it uses what you feed it in for its next response that somebody else may ask. So if you're feeding it in the wrong information, like there are people who do that on purpose just to tip off the whole like algorithm, but that to understand those things, like how ChatGPT can be wrong and can make mistakes, is what is the maturity that is needed in children before like they start using AI on like a regular basis.
Yeah. Cool. So moving on to our next question, are any of your teachers or professors addressing media literacy? And if so, how, and did you find it helpful? That's a great question.
So in regards to this question, I am a photojournalist. I take numerous photos, and I'm currently in New York doing a program for photography. And I actually posed the idea of media literacy and general use of AI to my professor, who's been working in photography and photojournalism for over 50 years. And he and I posed this question of, do you find AI as an obstacle when you're doing photojournalism projects? And he said that, and I liked how he phrased it. He said, this is the AI is the world that I'm living in, but it's not his responsibility anymore to live in a time when there was no AI and nothing that was interfering with how he worked. But now it's a pressing issue for my generation and how we're going to be able to coexist with AI as a resource.
Any other experiences on how your teachers are talking about AI?
So as a news literacy ambassador, the thing that I do the most is I talk to people on the street. I approach students college age about what their experience with media literacy is. That is the question that I ask most often. And every single time, I swear to you, their answer is only that they got it so that they could properly cite sources for their essay, or nothing at all. And that was my experience too. Now, I think that media literacy being taught in high schools, middle schools, elementary schools is becoming more popular, especially post 2016 election and the rise of the term fake news, and post pandemic especially. But that was still my experience, and that was still the experience of many people not getting any amount of media literacy. So I'm happy that the tide is starting to change.
Yeah, for sure. And it's your world that is being created, and you have every right to say what you want from it. It's totally true. Katrina, you have your hand up. You can feel
Yeah.
free. Yeah.
This question was inspired by both what Pride and Pranav were saying, but anyone can weigh in. So Pride mentioned doing art projects at the art high school using AI with images. And I was curious if any of your teachers did talk about how to properly cite AI, either if you're using an actual AI generated image or if you're using inspiration from AI. You know, there are some different ways to cite those sorts of things. And I was curious if your high school did that, or for anyone else, if they did. And I guess I'll leave it there. And then if we have time, I'll ask the other one too.
So for my school, usually what my teachers would recommend, if depends on like the situation. Again, as you said, if you got inspiration from AI, like an idea, and you created the image on your own, or you found the image on the internet, not from AI, but only with the inspiration given from AI, you just cite the image you made, or you don't have to cite it really like it was made by ChatGPT or inspired by ChatGPT. But of course, if ChatGPT or some AI makes the image for you, you have to say made with AI, or sometimes like for some classes they just don't allow it.
There's also some debate about that in the research space. I do a lot of media effects research, and some people are confused about whether to cite ChatGPT at all. So you will sometimes see in the list of authors at the top of research articles that ChatGPT is an author. And I've been advised by my research advisors not to do that because it might hinder the papers from getting into conferences or being accepted, or it might be harder to defend that way, even if ChatGPT is not used in the actual research itself, just maybe the wording of things. It's a complicated debate. I'm not sure where I land on it yet.
I wanted to add on to what Pranav was saying. That's how we did it in my school too. Like if I edited a video project, it would just be added into the credits. So instead of saying like just editor Pride David, it would be editor Pride David, and ChatGPT was used throughout this process. ChatGPT AI generated editor was used in the process as well.
Thank you. Yeah, this sort of relates to that of Pranav, you were saying about how sometimes classmates just take AI, or I know in the past, sometimes students would just take a Google search or a Wikipedia entry as this is absolutely true. So I love that you're coming up with a teacher-friendly guide, but I'm also curious about anyone here, what you say to other youth if you overhear a classmate saying, oh, you know, I'm writing this essay and ChatGPT did it for me, do you say, just so you know, you want to check your facts? Or like, how do you talk peer to peer about this?
Okay, I'll answer it first and then I'll pass it off to Jenna if you want, because I saw you on mute. So if like one of my friends, like, because ChatGPT is really prevalent in my school, like a lot of kids use it for like any subject, not just writing. It can be used for science and math, as other people have said before. But like my approach to, if one of my peers used AI for like abused AI for like the wrong reason, I would say, dude, if you're not really learning from this in another high stakes situation, when you would actually have to write with, like, you're given a prompt, you're sat down at a desk, you're given a pen and a paper, like what are you gonna do then? Are you just gonna like pray? Like there's not much you can do then, because there's no chat GPT to help you. Like you're only cheating yourself is what I'm gonna say. Like that's the way I feel like is the best to deter them from abusing AI for those reasons.
I tell them to ask ChatGPT to write them a bio about Lorenzo Bianchi, who is an Italian philosopher from the 1600s that I made up, and I change the name every time. And then ChatGPT will other generative AI will confidently spit out like a whole bio about his life and his work and everything that he does. And they go, here you go. And I'm like, now look him up. He doesn't exist. This is something that I got from a video from John Oliver. They had a whole 20-minute segment where they just broke down AI and AI hallucinations. And it just shows you how you will get the information that you're looking for, but it doesn't come from anywhere. It can just generate whatever it wants. It's a very like hands-on way to show how these black box algorithms have manipulative trust associated with them.
Yeah, I would also love to add on to this, because this experience actually did happen in my class. I used ChatGPT to write my college essay to an extent, not copy and paste, but I got the general ideas. And another student in my class also had the inspiration to write an essay using ChatGPT, but he simply copy and pasted. So that was a very interesting experience because he said that he got it from me because I used ChatGPT to write my college essay. And to that, I say that it has a lot to do with like how, like for him, I was mainly critiquing the way that it wrote. Because when you're writing an essay in your own tone, in your own inflections, like phrases that you say, it's your essay. However, ChatGPT can't mimic that. It's always going to be this like robotic, like humanless thing when you're writing. So that's what I recommend to people on why they shouldn't copy and paste specifically, especially for like creative essays, because it really takes the creativeness out of it because it's no longer your essay, it's just an essay.
Can I squeeze another question in here that
Yeah,
relates
one more
to what
question.
you
Sorry.
what do you say to your peers who have fallen down the rabbit hole? How do you bring them out of that? Or can you?
So that's a very interesting question. With some students, they have relied so heavily on ChatGPT to replace their learning, but in reality, as Pranav said, they're cheating themselves out of their own education through digital truths, which I mentioned previously. We held a two-part institute where we first had a 2-hour lesson on how to combat misinformation, and then we put the education to the test, and we had a Model UN conference where they had to debate utilizing facts from credible sources. And at some point in the debate, we intentionally threw in a little bit of misinformation just to see if the students were able to identify it. And we said, we'll give you an extra point if you're able to identify it. And people were actively trying to find whatever we had put in some random comment or speech. And I felt that was a really interesting experience and really showed that when rewarded, students will go towards what they actually need to do. So I think maybe utilizing some sort of incentive for students to, find credible sources and combat misinformation. I feel like that is a step closer to where we're trying to get as education grows.
That's amazing. Well, it looks like we are at time. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to contact or support the Youth Council in any way, their contact information is in the chat. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy and excited to see the work that we are going to do with the Youth Council moving forward. Thank you so much, everyone. And watch out for that resource coming to your inboxes pretty soon, okay? Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you all for coming.